Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday edition of Talkback, brought to you by Bitterroot Motors, doing it right for more than 42 years. The Mustard Seed Restaurant, office solutions and services, locally owned, solutions for every office. Automotive cutting edge on Bulwer Street. Call 542-2218. Transport equipment, your headquarters for RV service maintenance and repair. South of the Y, next to the Axemen. Rogers and Company Fine Jewelry, offering beautiful, unique fine jewelry at competitive prices, right across from Super Walmart. Deep Roots Medicinals, offering alternative and natural medicine to treat a wide variety of conditions. Veteran owned and operated. Contact Brian at 531-7461. If I may adopt the persona of one of my heroes, humble Howard Cosell, the first round of the heavyweight bout is in the books. And it looks like the city of Missoula has scored in the first round, a knockdown. But what will happen to Carlisle and Mountain Water in the second round? So, Adam, how'd I do?
Well, I think you summed it up pretty good because, a lot of people are treating this like it's the end, and really, like you said, I think we're approaching the second round or coming out of halftime with a lead, but it's far from over.
Have you heard any feedback since I spoke with you last night about what the plans are going forward?
I have not yet. I think it's still going to continue to be a little bit of a waiting game as the valuation process moves forward, and then certainly as we expect to see an appeal of the ruling.
Now, you're not going to be on city council probably, right, when they make the decision or when the money numbers come down?
Yeah, but that's my thought is that process could take a year or more, between the valuation and the appeals. So I likely won't be on city council anymore.
Well, it took Judge Townsend 2 months to shuffle these papers, which is basically just a copy paste of the city's case. I'm curious. Seriously, I read through the thing yesterday.
Okay.
It basically is the city's case.
All right.
I did want to ask you though, if you could forecast for us, what could the city of Missoula afford?
Well, that's really dependent on interest rates, bond rating, how high the legal fees actually do go when it's all said and done. So it's really tough. There was a Barclays report, and there was some articles about this at the time that said the city could afford to bond $102 million. That report estimated or left some wiggle room for some pretty conservative estimates, and assumed that interest rates could go up 1%, and had various bond ratings, and so that's a fairly good starting point. Certainly, if interest rates stay lower, the city could afford probably a little bit more. But when we say the city could afford $102 million in that report, that's a $102 million bond. That's not a $102 million purchase price. So you also have to account for the legal fees, the underwriting fees for the bonds, any consulting fees, which will certainly be over $10 million, could approach $15, $20 million plus, depending on what legal fees do.
Now, can I just throw something in here, Adam? You had just mentioned, now that the first round is over and we're all kind of looking in the rearview mirror. Okay, this is the end of the first round. We're getting into the second round. From now until the time that the valuation is made and the appeal goes on, meanwhile, the lawyers, cha-ching, 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 they keep on working, right? And
well, yeah, they're still foaming at the mouth. There's no doubt about that. As much as the politicians are pretending like it's over, the lawyers know that they've still got plenty of paychecks ahead of them in this fight.
Wow.
And of course, the city will be responsible for those charges, right?
Well, yes. There's some disagreement over that, but the short answer is yes, the city will be responsible for both sides' legal fees.
Right. The city doesn't want to say that. The city's humble forecast is about $3.1 million as what they're indebted for right now, but that's not counting the Carlisle expenses or the Mountain Water expenses. Right, and the Carlisle Mountain Water expenses, the estimate I've heard, and I don't know that they've necessarily said anything publicly, but the estimate I've heard is that they're over $5 million. So we've got total expenses over $8 million right now. And that's before we even go through the next phase, which arguably is one of the most intense, it would seem to me, the valuation phase.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how the legal fees are going to rack up during that time, but I can certainly tell you they've blown way past the mayor's original estimate of $400,000 aside, and I think they'll continue to move at a pretty rapid rate, including the city's potential involvement in any proceedings before the PSC. I don't know how this district court ruling affects Liberty's filing with the PSC. It probably stops that filing. No. But I know the city wants to be involved in that and has hired attorneys to be involved in that.
So I wanted to read some feedback from the Facebook page, and I know you can't stay with us long, so I'm going to have one big question for you before I know you need to tag out. Claire says on our Facebook page, the city may have won, but the people lost. You have been skeptical about this mountain water acquisition, but if I put the city of Missoula wins mountain water condemnation trial, a lot of people in Missoula will go and like that Facebook post because they think that's good news. If it's not good news, Adam, which I think you don't believe it is, tell the public why. Why don't you see it that way?
Well, I just, in the case, the city said it was planning to make a plan to run mountain water. I don't think the city is ready to take over this asset. I think the city will use it to control growth in a way that negatively impacts our economy and negatively impacts options for affordable housing. The way that the bond structure is looking to be set up, rates will necessarily go up, probably by double digits within the first year, and then at a very significant growth rate in years after that. There's great employees at Mountain Water. They know how to run the system. And if those employees are committed to sticking around, I think the water utility will do just fine. But I don't think rates will stay where they should stay and where they would stay under private ownership. And, there's no end game here where the system gets paid off and in the long run water rates go down. Every sort of capital improvement the city would put into this asset would be bonded, would be debt funded, and will perpetually be in debt over the system. And I just don't think that's a good end game for the ratepayers in Missoula.
All right. Looks like we only have a minute left. Thanks for calling in. How long can you stay with us? You need to tag out now, or?
Yeah, after this break, I'd probably better head out.
All right. Well, thanks so much for calling in this morning, Adam.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
All right, there you go.
That means it's your turn to call in. 721-1290 is our number. Call in, tell us what your thoughts on the mountain water trial are. Also, I'm going to give away something real quick. If you're struggling to stay cooled off in this hot weather, come by and try Rocket Coffee's cold brew coffee.
Ooh.
Brewed with Montana Coffee Traders Montana Morning Blend. It's a sure way to keep you feeling refreshed. And don't forget to get some toast. Rocket Coffee provides the best espresso, drip coffee, tea, and other beverages in Missoula. Come by and start your day off with Rocket Coffee and Toast from us. Located at 1000 East Broadway, inside the Garden City Garden Supply, Missoula's only indoor-outdoor garden supply, where they're focused on providing the education and equipment to grow your own produce naturally and organically all year long. So we're giving away free coffee and toast
right now.
All you have to do is call 721-1290.
Right
you
now.
Don't have to discover the valuation of mountain water. You don't have to make up the mind for Judge Townsend. All you have to do is call 721-1290, and you can also talk about the mountain water.
We'll be right back. 721-1290 is our number. All three lines are open. Big decision came down yesterday. Judge Townsend did release her decision. For those of us who have been kind of camped out by the district court office, waiting for the decision to be released in a traditional method, which is the judge sends it down there and they post it. I looked at the decision. It said it was posted yesterday, but it didn't have a time stamp on it.
Well, so I think she just gave it back to the person that wrote it.
Oh.
I'm serious. Okay. I read through this. I read through this decision.
All right.
And frankly, if you read through a decision, you might find, oh, hey, the judge found that the mountain water was right on this. They found that city was right on this. There might be some parsing, some differences.
Right.
It's all city column all the way down. And some of the serious findings of fact, right, are summed up in one sentence for me, where Judge Townsend wrote, quote, "The city has a credible plan to operate the water system," end quote. Now, if you don't remember, this was like the funniest part of the trial for me when the mayor was tasked with explaining what the plan was. And then he said, "We're planning to plan." And I mean, I don't know what's credible about planning, but okay, sure. Planning to plan a plan sounds like a great plan to me.
All right. 721-1290 is our number. What do you think about this? And again, please keep in mind that this is step one of a very long, very expensive process that all of us are going to be living day to day. And remember, this is kind of the first hurdle, if you will. It's going to go a lot further than this, but there's going to be a little bit of a dip now. We won't hear anything for a while, except the city council paying the bills week to week. Right? So off we go now to the phones. Greg, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. This is Greg Hertz from Polson. I just wanted to give full disclosure, too. I'm also Adam Hertz's father. I'm very proud of Adam and what he's done.
That's awesome.
In city council and informing the taxpayers and ratepayers of Missoula.
So you're the one that gave him his conservative chops, huh?
Oh, I don't know. You know, he just raised him, and he does a great job.
As Adam always points out to me, Adam got into the political biz before Dad did. So.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. And actually, when I ran in 2012, I threw up some of his. I took his logo off his campaign signs and used them down in Polson.
You plagiarist, you.
Well, does he still hug and kiss you in public?
Oh yeah, he always does. We get along great, and we banter back and forth, and he provides me with a lot of good input. Especially, I'm the state representative too from House District 12 here in Polson, and he informed me a lot of stuff that goes on in local government when I was over at the legislature, and that was one of the reasons I kind of wanted to call today too. Was about, I'm sure the ratepayers of Missoula are probably, well, not all of them, but they should be aware that rate increases will no longer be reviewed by the Public Service Commission.
That's right.
If the city of Missoula takes over Mountain Water. And, in fact, we had a bill in the legislature which died a fast death in committee where we actually were going to make sure that any rate increases over 5.5% by a municipality would have to be reviewed by the PSC. But, of course, the League of Cities and Towns and MACO and any other governmental entity who has a utility fought hard to kill that bill in committee, and it was killed in committee. So,
Yeah,
because it's quite interesting that, years ago, I think it was in the 70s and 80s, the PSC actually did review rate increases for municipalities, and then that law was changed. But something needs to be done because even Polson, we're looking at a 300% rate increase on the sewer system because it's been ignored for 25 years.
Now, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the whole issue of eminent domain. I think for a lot of people that kind of gets lost. A lot of people don't understand what that term means. It sounds like a Star Trek movie or something.
Yeah, it does. And when you can start reaching into private entities that are doing a good job serving the public, and all of a sudden a municipality, a government entity decides to take it over just because they may think they can run and do a better job, that really bothers me. I mean, what's next? Do they want to go after, grocery stores because they can do a better job running those? I don't know. It just seems a little...
Well, but Greg, I can see it. I could see that if the citizenry of Missoula was so upset with the management and the rates and everything with their water company that they showed up with pitchforks and torches and said, and started rallying and chanting and that sort of thing. We want our water company, but that never happened.
Yeah, and I haven't really looked at the Missoula situation. I'm not sure how your rates compare with rates all across the state. So that's a consideration too. But I don't know. It's a long process. I think you guys have got it right. You're just kind of at halftime, and it's going to be a long process as you go forward.
All right. Well, Greg, we sure appreciate hearing from you, and we sure appreciate your son.
Yeah, I do too. I'm sure he'll be missed on Missoula City Council a bit.
Well, we'll miss him.
I'm sure he'll watch, and I'd certainly like to see him in Helen at some point in time, too.
All right. Is that allowed, by the way, to have father and son?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of...
Yeah, it actually has happened a few times, I guess, in the state.
Interesting.
It would have been interesting to see the father and son on the House floor maybe debating each other.
Well, he's got a new baby on the way, so priorities have to come first,
He does, and that's the issue. Montana's a citizen legislature, and it's difficult to get away from your business and your family to go spend 4 months in Helen every other year.
You got it. Hey, Greg, we appreciate you being with us. Thank you. Best of luck to you.
All right, thank you.
Take care. All right, we're up against a break, so go ahead.
I think for many conservatives, their biggest weakness in politics is that they value family.
Well, we're going to take a little break. 721-1290. All three lines open. I'm really kind of surprised that we're not just deluged with phone calls saying, "What in the world? And was she thinking?" And we
got a few comments. Another one here.
Well, maybe just folks are turning to Facebook, I guess. So.
Christine says the judge was bought and paid for.
Oh my! Okay.
Which will be an interesting. I mean, I have no doubt that will be part of the case if Carlisle and Mountain Water decide to appeal to a higher court, which they likely will. I have no doubt that will be part of the case there.
I hesitate to say that. I do. I really hesitate to say that.
Well, first of all, these big guns are going to use every bullet they have accessible, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Why do you hesitate, I guess?
I hesitate because I respect Judge Townsend.
Well, it's not about her. It's about what the opponents are willing to throw at the case.
I see.
Right?
I see what you mean. Okay, so just to make the charge.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell you what, we're up against a break. I would like to know what you think. 721-1290 is our number. I don't necessarily agree with her decision, but that doesn't mean I don't respect her. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'd love to know what you guys think. 721-1290. It's strangely silent around here for a very popular talk show. So unless you just don't care, give us a call, 721-1290. All right, 721-1290, ask and you shall receive, and we do have callers, so let's get right to the phone. Eric, hey, it's been a while. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
What's up?
Different Eric.
Oh, okay.
I think that the mere hint of impropriety is a problem, and that she should have recused herself.
Now, why do you think there was a hint of impropriety there?
Well, because Mayor Engen was the driving force behind this lawsuit, and she was used as a endorsement on his campaign.
It's true.
Okay.
Is that not?
There was
show some form of impropriety.
I think that he endorsed her campaign.
He endorsed her campaign?
I believe so. I think it might have gone both ways.
Either direction is still very problematic, in my opinion.
Well, it's not illegal, but it might be is deemed by some to be improper.
Well, just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it's right.
Okay. All right. Well, go ahead.
Actually, there are issues with judge endorsements. That's why they didn't do it as the mayor from his office. They did it like the endorsement list of families in Missoula that this person. Yeah. Okay. And he's certainly allowed to do that as a private citizen. It's with the Judicial Ethics Board, I believe, is where the issue is.
But it would not have been particularly difficult for her to recuse herself because of the endorsement by him. His name is very well known. He's a public figure. It's not like Joe Schmo, regular citizen. It's John Engen, mayor of Missoula.
I'm actually looking through it right here. On the elect Karen Townsend for district judge, it's on the list. There's lots of names on here. Many of them you would know. But yes, John Engen is in there. Just John Engen.
Hey,
he was the leading, the driving force behind this lawsuit.
Eric, I got to get one more call in. Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate your call. John, we have 1 minute. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you some clarity on why this ruling came this way and why the mayor wanted to do this. It has nothing to do with financial or, practical reasons. The facts mean nothing. The reason why they went after this and why they're doing it is it feels good.
Well, I mean, it's clear in the judge's decision that, this is a public good that the public should own.
I remember Mayor Engen, one of the first arguments that he spoke about was that it was offensive that a municipal water system should be owned by a multinational corporation rather than the city itself.
Well, I don't think, yes, you could lay it out that way, but really what it is, it feels good to own our own water system, just like it feels good to provide free bus service, which I know he's trying to do now, and it felt good to have a baseball team, so we gave him all kinds of tax dollars, and
you know what?
Good, they all just feel good.
John, I'm so sorry. We are like flat out of time. I have a hard break I have to hit. We have guests coming in the studio.
That's right. We'll be speaking with Representatives Ellie Hill and Brad Tschida.
We'll be right back. Welcome, everybody. It's hour number 2 of Talkback, sponsored by Automotive Cutting Edge, Transport Equipment, Deep Roots Medicinals, Rogers & Company Fine Jewelry, the Mustard Seed Restaurant, Office Solutions and Services, and by Bitterroot Motors. Now we're going to be getting together with a couple of local legislators. Brad Tschida is joining us here in studio. Ellie Hill, being a busy mom, is rushing to be here in the studio just as quickly as she can. Grab that microphone there, Brad. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing very well, Peter. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. So without getting into any political stuff, what's been going on with you?
You know, when I came back from the legislature, so this won't be a political statement. When I came back, I had a honey-do list that was about 2 arms long. So
Okay.
I've spent most of the weekends working around the house getting some things done that we needed to take care of. But just getting ready for summer, getting ready to enjoy the beauty of Montana. It's
so what kind of things? Because you're a Montana native, right?
Actually, no, moved out here in 1963,
Well,
so I got here as
still.
quickly as I could. So.
So what kind of things do you like to do?
I have 2 sons who are both avid hunters. Well, one's avid, one's rabid. He makes up his own hunting seasons when
Okay.
there isn't anything to hunt. So we get out in archery and rifle hunt.
Right.
We fish. Just take in the nature, just hiking and exploring the area around Montana. Do a little traveling as well. So,
And any places specifically you like to go?
there's so many things to do around the state that it's hard to get away from western Montana and go other places. I mean, people say, "Have you been to Makoshika over in the east?" No, I haven't, and I'd love to get over there, but there's so much to do here that you get caught up when you get out in your car. You go, "Hey, there's a great place to go." You make a right-hand turn, you don't get to where you're going.
So do you like camp or?
I was very fortunate. My in-laws have a place up on Flathead Lake, so we get up there and spend quite a bit of time there. We do get out and camp. We when we hunt, sometimes we'll grab a tent or just throw a mattress in the back of the truck, and depending on the weather, and sleep there. So we get out and enjoy it any possible way we can. But we try to rough it in the cabin up at the lake. So that's
Now you and I had mentioned that you live just far enough past the city limits that you're probably not in any danger of being annexed right now, right?
exactly.
Okay, so when you look at the mayor, what he says, we have a 5.27% or whatever it is increase in the budget, and then we have mountain water, and then we have the county trails, parks and trails, which is already passed, and then we have the school district 1 is proposing 2 bond issues for a total of $158 million, which will address a lot of things that obviously need to be done. But when you add all those things together on the tax base of Missoula, so that's a lot.
It's considerable. It's one of the reasons that we moved out of the city to be in the county was to avoid some of the city tax increases. We knew we couldn't avoid everything, but we knew that there would be some that we could separate ourselves from by being out in the county.
Sure. And now let me ask you this: Do you think for someone to pick up and move and say, I just don't want to do this anymore in the city, and still basically work here and use all the facilities and use the roads and yet move out of town, are we somehow forsaking our responsibilities to be a good community member?
I would ask the people from Ravalli County and Mineral County that question as well, because there are a lot of folks who commute into Missoula County and use the services. It would almost be like saying, should we pay additional taxes up in Polson if we go up there to use the roads going into the Flathead Lake area, or if we're traveling around the state. We're already paying for a lot of those kinds of things.
Sure.
I guess at some point in time it comes down to self-preservation. When you get on an airplane and they go through the instructions, what's the first thing they say in the event of cabin depressurization?
Right.
Put your own mask on. It's not to be selfish. It's because if you pass out, you can't help anybody else out.
So basically, self-interest. We talk about that a lot in the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. We try to figure out what country or what the municipality is going to do in a certain situation. The first thing that I've learned is you look at what is that person or entity's self-interest. What is going to be best for them? And naturally, that's the one thing they're going to gravitate to.
Yeah, exactly. That's just human nature. We all tend to look at what serves our purposes best. And I think one of the things we attempt to do as humans, we're the only animal that can think rationally and can love. So we have to look at what we can do outside of ourselves to be a better servant, a better neighbor, a better member of a community. Sometimes that's to serve our own interests. But in many cases, it's to serve the interest of other people, and I think that's the focus that we have to have. So when we say that we're moving out of the area because we don't want to pay taxes, it has nothing to do with a self-interest. It has to do with making sure that we're responsible to our families and to those who depend upon us. So,
well, we're gonna take a break. The fabulous. Hi, Ellie. How are you? Grab that microphone right there, since John has disappeared.
Hi, Peter.
It's good to see you.
Sorry, I just ran and got here.
That's okay. I know you're a busy mom and you've got lots of stuff going on, and so that we're just glad you're here.
Yeah, Grandpa got there just in the nick of time.
Lovely. All right. Tell you what, we're gonna let you catch your breath, because I know there's like 3 sets of 11 stairs you have to climb to get here. So we're gonna let Ellie get a break and a drink of water, and we're gonna come right back and talk to these two fine individuals who represent Missoula in just a moment. Okay, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. We also, of course, have our Facebook page. If you'd like to post a question or a comment, we share those as well. Joining us here in studio, we have Brad Tschida and Ellie Hill, and both of them are representatives of their various constituencies here in Missoula. So Brad, whom do you represent?
I represent... All right, thanks, Peter.
You're tall.
House District 97, which is basically West Missoula, encompassing the Elmar Estates area, and then going out Blue Mountain Road, Big Flat Road to Lolo, and then up Highway 12. So that's basically the constituent area.
So, Ellie, how about you? Who do you represent?
So it's my third term now, and with redistricting, I'm now House District 90, which is near the university area, the slant streets up into the South Hills. And but I can tell you, and I think Brad would agree, that in the capital, when our name tag says Missoula, folks just generally think of Missoula.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So I guess I want to ask both of you. I'll ask you first, Ellie. When you look at the legislature that just got finished, from your perspective, what were the high points and the low points?
Well, I think, like I said, it's my third session there now, and so I was really thrilled by the folks that were willing to work together in a bipartisan way to get some stuff done. My first session was when Brian Schweitzer was using a branding iron out on the steps of the Capitol.
Very colorful.
Colorful and entertaining, but probably not the best for collegiality and folks wanting to work together in a meaningful way for politics in this state. I think that this new sort of scene up there, where you've got some folks on both sides of the aisle that really want to get some stuff done. The numbers of the legislature are also quite different now than they were my last 2 sessions before. In that, I mean, more Democrats. In the past, it had been super majorities, and also having a Democratic governor. I think that the third year that I've been there now, where the folks on the other side of the aisle, for me, know we have a Democratic governor, and so it really incentivizes. Sure.
So
us doing work.
You didn't feel so much like the Lone Ranger, basically, right?
Well, I actually felt I was in a working majority for the things that I was there to accomplish. Medicaid expansion, my number one priority while I was there. Campaign finance laws, I'm just so passionate about that our government's not for sale in this state. And then, of course, the Water Compact, which had enormous bipartisan support, carried by a Republican from the Senate, Chaz Vincent. And so to accomplish those goals, we needed folks that were willing to work together. And sometimes, the whole saying that we make sausage, with Medicaid expansion, I can assure you that is what occurred. The original bill, the Healthy Montana Plan, was, in large part crafted by the governor's office, carried by Representative Pat Noonan from Butte. I was the vice chair of the Human Services Committee that heard literally on the first bill 7-8 hours of testimony, mostly folks in favor. Mostly folks from the business community, veterans groups, of course, hospitals, physicians. And my friend and the chair, Representative Art Whittick from the Gallatin Gateway area, that committee tabled the bill after 7 to 8 hours of testimony within 5 minutes after the bill closed. So that decision was made. That was a political decision. And so to have folks work together to come up with a solution that would appeal to both sides of the aisle, that could make it through a committee, make it through a silver bullet, and then and make it through the governor's desk, and frankly make it through the federal government. This plan is the most conservative plan in the country. It has work requirements. It has a lot of things that don't necessarily appeal to my friends in the Missoula Democratic delegation.
Sure, yeah.
And I think, but I think it's still going to serve the purpose of somewhere between 45,000 and 70,000 Montanans, probably about 6,000 veterans. And so giving those folks health care, it's just, and being a part of that discussion in a meaningful way on that committee, it's really changed my perspective and changed my my passion that this is like public education or a lot of things. You know, giving folks access to health care will save their lives.
Okay, and how about some low points?
Low points, you know, were yoga pants.
Now, was that really such a big deal?
Oh,
honestly?
I just tease and Doc
or was
more,
it just a bunch of headlines?
Well, I think it was a part of some of this sort of nanny state stuff we saw. I was fairly upset by a bill that came out of Great Falls, where we would have drug tested poor people for receiving food stamps, called TANF now. That sort of idea that people lose their integrity because they need a hand up, it didn't sit well with me, and I felt like there was a lot of sort of angry politics like that. I thought yoga pants was clearly, I think initially supposed to be a stab at Missoula's naked bike ride or something, but but in the end, of course, it was going to outlaw flesh-covered yellow yoga pants. So, was there other, another low point for me really is the bill to bring guns in bars and schools and banks, and to watch the education community really come behind that. And again, we were able to kill that, I think, on the floor. We were also able to kill the bill that came from Carl Glim that was going to allow folks to discriminate based on their religious beliefs. That, of course, made national news almost the day that we were debating it on the floor. They were going to boycott, I think, the maybe NCAA games in Indianapolis. The day we were going to debate that on the floor, the leading hashtag of Twitter that day was boycott Indiana. So our business community really spoke loudly that they didn't think that kind of law was necessary in Montana. I'm a firm believer, as I've said to you guys many times I've been on this program, is Montanans, for the most part, I think, are in the middle. They're not liberals from Missoula, but they're also not the far right either. And I think most of them are in the middle, and they want to see us get stuff done, and they want to see us get stuff to go back to work and make sure our public lands are protected and our outdoor heritage is protected. So.
Okay, I want to give Brad a chance to do the same thing. So high points and low points, Brad, from the legislature.
Peter, I'd say that probably one of the high points was the people that I had a chance to meet. There's some great folks that you wind up encountering when you go over to serve, and you have no idea who you're going over and going to work with. One of the gentlemen I sat by, who actually was the sponsor of the legislation that would have required drug testing of TANF recipients, Randy Pinocci, said, this is like being in high school. He said, we have a lunch hour, we get a class photo taken, we get roll call. I mean, it was interesting to see the different diverse personalities. One of the other high points was that you hear people talk about a far right or an ultra conservative, or a far left and ultra liberal. I didn't find that much disparity between the two sides. I think that there were a group of folks over there who were constitutionalists. Personally, I would find myself in that in that craft, as well as being a little bit more of a libertarian, focusing more on personal liberty. So I would say that the things that were advantageous to me or that were high points to me did not come in terms of legislation, because quite frankly, there were more issues that dealt with or that occurred that were low points.
Like what?
I would say the defection of the Republicans early on from our side of the caucus, who went over and visit with the Democrats. Said, look, we've got some things we want to get passed, and we're gonna essentially caucus with you on some of these items, and that wound up throwing the majority over to the Democrat side. So
let me ask, why is that a bad thing? Because the one thing that if you talk to people, just on the street, I wish these guys would work together to get some stuff done, rather than this side and that side, and the other side's always bad and we're always good. So explain that to me.
Well, I think there's certain principles that you have to abide by. I wrote a response to Rob Cook's letter in Missoula in here not long ago, and I said there's certain fundamental principles that you have to ascribe to, those being the policies of your party. And I think you have to stick to those points. I don't think there was a problem working together on issues. One of the things I saw, though, when I pointed this out in that letter that I wrote, was that there's been commentary about responsible Republicans who are willing to walk to the other side and say, look, let's get some things done together. Quite frankly, I didn't see the same sort of reciprocity come from the Democrats when there was a major piece of legislation that was carried by Republicans. That was a significant piece of legislation. Oftentimes you'd have a 60-40 vote, and the one member of the Democrats who may have voted with your side in some cases, and I don't know if this had to do with those particular pieces of legislation, but the next day they would ask to have their vote changed and would go back to a 59-41 vote, meaning that it was completely split on party lines. So I would like to have seen some more
reciprocity.
Yeah, reciprocity from the other side of the aisle. And I talked to several of the members of the Democrat caucus, and there were certain things that they agreed on, but said, you know what, party wants us to go ahead and vote a certain way, so we have to stick with those.
We're going to take a break, come right back. We have all three lines open. We'd love to hear from you folks. You have a question for Ellie and Brad. Obviously, two different political philosophies here, if you would like to. And they're here in one room, and they're not fighting. So
we'll see. We haven't had our free time yet.
Okay. All right.
But Brad and Ellie are both wearing yoga pants. Thanks for doing that.
We're going to come right back. We're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. We have Ellie Hill and Brad Tschida joining us here in the studio. And let's jump right to the phones, because that's what we do, and say good morning to Dan. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Peter. How's it going? I got a question for Ellie. I was wondering, she mentioned the low point, one of them being drug testing for welfare recipients, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to ask, if I'm required to take a drug test to receive my paycheck, why is it such an ordeal for someone to receive welfare and be required to take a drug test?
Well, so there's a couple reasons. The program was found to be unconstitutional by the, I think, Third Circuit out of Florida. They tried the program in Utah, and they found that the cost to administer the program to the tens of thousands of people who receive really what amounts to food for hungry people, and in large part, the majority of the recipients are children. They didn't find it to have to pencil out that the cost to run the program didn't really result in that many positive drug tests. Should private industry drug test their employees? I don't have a problem with that. I think that tying drug tests to giving hungry people food is a little offensive. And I'll give you some other examples. We have a lot of other federal programs, right? In fact, many legislators receive what are called ag subsidies. We don't drug test them to get their farm money. So this presumption that somehow poor people are drug users and folks that get ag subsidies
I don't think it's a perception that poor people are drug users. I think it's a little offensive that us as taxpayers have continually are being required to take on burdens that are just becoming offensive in itself. I mean, the tax rate's getting outrageous, and every time we turn around, there's a new tax increase. There's something else that we're expected to pay for, and we're having an ever-increasing decrease in our pay.
Well, now, Dan, allow me to jump in here. What would your solution to that be?
Well, I don't know if there's a solution, but I would assume that if private industry has to do drug testing and they have to foot the bill, I just don't see a problem.
Well, I do want to share, Dan, that I actually drafted an amendment to that bill that was on the desks of all 100 members of the House on their desks when we heard the bill on the floor that would have required the legislators to be drug tested. That did not receive a lot of support.
I don't know. I was first in line with my hand up.
That's true. That Brad did come over to me and say he liked that one.
My whole life for, and I think I could have passed that one.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw something else in here. I think that Ellie makes a good point. I mean, drug testing every single applicant, especially when a lot of the recipients are children, would be expensive and cost prohibitive. It seems to me. But in the macro view, I mean, even if you had the drug testing capabilities, I don't think Montana would be ready to deal with all of the issues that would come out with finding all of these addicted people at this point. We just don't have the midway facilities to treat these people and make sure they're okay. On the other hand, I do think that it's not a bad idea to have these resources where, and by the way, my wife and I had been on SNAP within the last 3 years, so I know very firsthand what this experience is like. These occasions should be and can be more beneficial for society in ferreting out problems that a family might be going through, including drug addiction, So to say that they shouldn't be looking for drug addiction or shouldn't have more powers to pursue maybe some help for somebody that is drug addicted
that
seems narrow-minded as well.
That's just it. Because I think what Ellie is saying is the presumption is that that they're trying to find some criminality rather than the presumption of trying to find help for someone who needs help.
Well, let's not tease ourselves. When you bring your kid in there and they check your kid for bruises, they're looking for criminality. I mean, they're already doing this stuff. So, I mean, and I don't believe that the law required every single person to be drug tested. I think that's a little bit of a misstatement.
Well, and I got to tell you, when it comes to drug testing in general, I don't necessarily agree that it needs to be done even in private industry, except for some professions. Obviously, we don't want aircraft pilots to be on drugs.
I don't want your DJs high like they are in Britain. I mean,
the point is, even if it's a random sample. I mean, because generally we get tested to gain employment, and then from there on out, it's kind of a random sample, and it's just a way to just kind of keep a check on what's happening with your workforce.
Okay, I appreciate the call, and we're going to take one more comment from each of you, then we have to take a break. So, Brad, did you have anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, regarding the drug test, one of the things that the sponsor, Randy Pinocci, came up with as far as a rationale for it was that there are individuals across the board who are drug users. And if you identify some of those who are, then you can provide help for them. And that was a major part of it. It wasn't to just identify criminal behavior, but to identify folks who may have a need and also alert those who may be using who weren't tested that, hey, look, if I'm going to continue this and they're going receiving this benefit and there's a potential that I may be tested, then I'm going to either have to find assistance or take the chance that I may not be able to receive that. So it wasn't to go out and punitively, crush a group of folks.
So, Ellie, is that a smokescreen?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, this is a complicated issue, and I really appreciated what both John and Dan said as well. I mean, I think there's thoughtful solutions that can be found that focus more on recovery and making sure folks are well and not addicted and not on the criminality side of things. But there's just something about the old Catholic schoolgirl in me about tying drug testing to giving hungry people food. I just I can't wrap my mind around it unless we are just going to drug test everybody for their federal benefits. Okay. And let me tell you, there's a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle receiving federal benefits.
And we're going to come right back with more Talkback. All three lines open. You want to talk to Ellie and Brad? This interesting conversation. We're hearing both sides. Would love to hear from you. 721. Go ahead, John.
John wants to set up a debate or conversation, I should say, about the issue of infrastructure. This was a big thing. Both sides seemed a little upset that it didn't happen and various conflicting bills. I want to ask you both, who's at fault? One party, one person? Just want to know, why wasn't there an infrastructure bill passed?
Okay, we'll find out after this quick time out. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. We have all three lines open. We have a Facebook comment. Mr. King.
Yeah, we got a couple comments. First, a follow-up from Chris. He called in but was working, so he couldn't stay on. He wanted to mention, he can see the not needing the drug test for like SNAP benefits, but when you're handing out actual cash that could be used for drugs or other things, he sees more of a need for scrutiny. A comment from Claire. She says, thanks to the rhinos and the moderate Democrats, or I guess that's another word for rhinos, moderate Democrats. The radical left-wing Democrats came out the winners. What do they think about the lawsuit against CSKT Water Compact? This is going to derail my comment, but we're going to prefer Claire here. Sorry.
Go ahead. Ellie, now you've already voiced the fact that you thought it was a great thing that the compact
I
was
sat
passed.
on, like I said, I was the vice chair of the Human Services Committee, so that was another maybe 6-hour hearing we had on a Saturday there at the Capitol, and hundreds of people.
I watched that. That was I thought, wow, nobody's even getting up to go to the bathroom. This must be compelling.
It was a fascinating experience to be a part of, and it just goes to show something that we've talked about in this room a lot: how much people care about their private property rights and their water, and the government's sort of interaction with that. I think what everyone learned was a really big history lesson, and that was that our Native Americans are quasi-sovereign nations, and really that federal law will prevail. I think that any talks of the lawsuit will not be found to be meritorious. The this is going to be a done deal. And I just can't emphasize enough that Chaz Vinson is one of the most conservative senators in the state of Montana. He carried the bill. It was a Republican who carried the bill. It was everyone from the Montana Chamber of Commerce to lots of landowners and law professors and really anyone involved that understood the rights of the tribes. And really the tribes gave up a lot. They gave up a lot to come to this deal. I really saw that bill as in some ways a no-brainer. And I had heard the bill this session before, and it was a long time coming. And so to characterize rhinos or dinos, I've been called a dino. Mostly in Missoula.
You could probably beat a rhino. I guess that's right. More fierce.
But I think that's just I think it's a little sad because those sorts of purity tests in the conservative side of the aisle, they're really not serving anyone well. Because I know Chaz Vinson, that guy, he ain't a rhino, and a lot of the Republicans that voted for the compact are very conservative people. And so I think throwing that stuff around is sort of really only serving Americans for prosperity well,
Okay, so what do you think, Brad?
Well, first of all, there was a clause in the compact that said that the state shall be held harmless in the event that it injured a private citizen. And if you look at Article 2, Section 18 of the Montana Constitution, it says the state cannot be held harmless from any injury that it causes to be incurred by a private citizen. That was the basis of the lawsuit. There were also, one of the things that I found interesting was that there were a number of property owners, well, the majority of property owners that are irrigators in the Jocko, the Mission, and the Flathead irrigation project were opposed to the compact because they foresaw a loss or reduction in the amount of water that they would have. But there were a number of landowners who had deep wells who were able to put together their own independent agreements with the tribes that circumvented or I guess removed them from the requirements of the compact, because their water would not then be included in the surface and groundwater that was being divvied or apportioned by the compact. So from a constitutional basis, and I'm not a constitutional lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, there's no basis for this other than the legal minds I've talked to, and they said that one fact alone should cause that the compact to be litigated in court. And the fact that the compact passed didn't mean that there wasn't going to be lawsuits. The tribe said if it doesn't pass, there will be. The landowner said if it does pass, there will be. So we still have a lot of time to make some money for some attorneys.
Because there's just something about water and lawsuits, isn't there? We got it with mountain water. We got it. So Ellie, one more quick comment before we take a break. Go ahead.
You wanted to respond. You got it. Water, right, is for fighting, whiskey's for drinking. I mean, some of the anger and animosity, and I'll say. I don't want this to sound like rhetoric, but sometimes, veiled racism in a lot of ways that came out during those hearings. It was very difficult to watch. I think that it is a history lesson. We have a treaty, and they have treaty rights, and that's a long-standing part of our democracy. And the Native Americans, the Confederate and Salish Kootenays, they had a right to that water, first in time, first in right, and they really did give up a lot to the other existing landowners. So I'll be interested to see where it goes, but I can't say enough how confident everyone involved that voted for that bill feels that was the right move. Okay, we're going to take a break. And Florence, I promise when we come back from this quick timeout, you're going to be first up. We have one line open now, 721-1290. I want to say thanks to Brad and Ellie for being with us and sharing their opinions, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. If you guys could just be here for the stuff between the breaks, it's a lot of fun. Anyway, 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. And I promised Florence we'd get her on right after the break, and I like to keep my word. So, Florence, go ahead. What's your question or comment?
Yes, my question is about Medicaid being eligible for all Montana citizens who earn up to a certain amount. And my daughter reapplied for that, and she was told she cannot get it for another 2 years.
And why is that?
They didn't tell her. They told her that was the law.
Well, I think it's also important to know that just because they passed it in the legislature, it hasn't been approved yet. The federal government has to take its time with it, and as we all know, it can take its time.
Yeah, so there's... Thank you, Florence. Thanks for calling.
They're
saying right now that the current bill that was passed in the last session, it's still being reviewed by the federal government. We're still probably about 6 months out before we'll see some movement of that in the state of Montana. I don't know the nuances of the situation involving your daughter, but I can just tell you that they were saying numbers between 45,000 and 70,000 Montanans would have access to affordable health care under this new policy. And so it will fundamentally change all corners of this state of folks that will live longer, be healthier, raise better kids, go to work when they need to go to work. And I just can't say enough about it. I think it will change Montana.
Okay, so let's talk about infrastructure. Oh, do you want to address that? Go ahead.
Yeah, couple of quick comments. Number one, the fact that you have 45 to 70,000 people who may be eligible may blow up the projections on what it's going to cost us. And in the last three bienniums of the next four, so 18, 19, 2021, and 22, 23, they're projecting that the state share will be about $240 million, which means about $40 million out of our coffers to pay for that, which was within about 80% of what we have statutorily required for education every year. It was $53 million increase statutorily. So you've got the possibility of doubling that. So the state may have to come up with an average of $80 million, and it will increase after we get past 2023. I don't know if it's exponentially, but it will continue to grow. The other issue is that the 45 to 70,000 people who will be eligible, in many cases, are adult, childless, healthy, able-bodied, non-working males. And to me, Medicaid was set up to help those who had special needs or those who were taking care of individuals with special needs. So the issue didn't make sense as far as on the economy or the economic impact, as well as the impact on individuals who were going to be eligible to use it.
You've heard from both of you about that. Let's talk about infrastructure now. John asked the question, what happened to the infrastructure bills? Nothing ever really got done, and there was a lot of finger pointing. So, Brad, I'll start with you this time.
Well, I think one of the issues initially, the governor's Build Montana bill was a $400 million project that threw a whole bunch of ingredients into the stew. And really, Montana has segregated those kinds of things in the past and has said, let's go ahead and look at infrastructure for roads, infrastructure for school, infrastructure for sewers and water treatment systems. So that really didn't gain a lot of traction on both sides of the aisle, I believe. We actually passed about $117 million worth of infrastructure bills. The portion of it that did not pass, $150 million, would have been $100 million worth of bonding and $50 million worth of cash. I ran some quick numbers. The cost of bonding, they projected when we listened to those individuals who finance bonds, was somewhere between 4 and 4.5%. Doesn't seem like a lot of money. I mean, it is in today's marketplace. Well, if you amortize $100 million out over the 20 years that they were expecting to pay that back, that's $219.1 million worth of payments on $100 million borrowed. We've got money in the bank right now that's earning, let's say, generously 0.2% that the state is earning. Because if you look at your own savings account or checking account, that's what you're getting. And that's what the state's bank account is getting.
It comes with its own laugh track. Yeah.
It's not going into long-term investment. So it's not earning the 5, 6, 7% that coal trust funds are earning. So it's getting 0.2%. The whopping return on that money over the same 20-year period is $4.1 million. So we would be paying out another $115 million based on interest if we borrow the money, as opposed to losing the sum of $4 million by taking the cash we have in the bank based on an arbitrary $400 million surplus that the governor wanted.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So in my original question, I asked you, do you blame a particular party or a particular person? It sounds to me that you kind of blame the governor for the way it was bundled. Is that true?
I blame the philosophy of borrowing. If you have money in the bank, you don't need to borrow it, especially if you're going to be paying twice as much. And if you look at indebting people for the next 20 or 30 years, it just doesn't make sense.
We're running short of time, so Ellie, I want to give you the same amount of time. Go ahead.
I just can't fundamentally disagree more. We're talking about, as my friend said, $100 million in bonding, $50 million in cash. We're talking about projects that build roads, build schools, build sewer systems, put people to work, help our economy. The fact that we walk away without improving this state's infrastructure for 2 more years for our next generation is appalling. And to blame the governor, this was a Republican bill. This was a Republican bill. The reason this bill failed is because of big egos and Americans for Prosperity. What folks don't realize is that some of the little rules we have in the state legislature, all of those other bills, like the Water Compact, Medicaid expansion, campaign finance, those passed with bipartisan majority support. The bonding bill did not pass because our Constitution requires 2/3 of the legislature So just because we had enough Republicans, enough Democrats working together to get good stuff done for Montana, a small faction of the body, a minority tyranny, held on to basically a sense of that they weren't able to kill all of the bills I mentioned. And so they killed this bill out of spite. And I can't emphasize enough. Do you really think that? Oh, I absolutely. Americans for Prosperity saw this and still tout this on their website and on social media as their only win was to kill this bill. Okay. And I will tell you, it's Montana Chamber of Commerce, it's the Montana hospitals, it's Montana contractors, our working folks, the realtors, they all supported this bill in its current form. Again, carried by a Republican. So don't be fooled that this was some sort of governor's agenda. This was a bipartisan bill. It had more than 50 votes. It didn't have 2/3 of the body. Okay, we're going to take a break, come right back. So 1 minute timeout, and we'll try to get as many phone calls as we can. This is a great discussion. We'll be right back. And we're back on Talkback, and we want to redeem as much time as we can here. We only have like 6 minutes left in the program. I want to get as many calls as we can. And Susan is up first. Susan, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to be very quick, and I really don't expect a response because I know Ellie and I disagree vehemently on this. But the CSKT Water Compact is a violation of the state constitution. The CSKT government has every right to their own water rights, but they do not have water rights for everybody else. They also do not have the right to monitor or siphon off or limit the water that belongs to the people who have the water right. And anyone, including Republicans, including Tim Fox, who I supported and now am absolutely vehemently against, no Republican or Democrat, including Ellie Hill, that voted in favor of the CSKT government's takeover of water rights in western Montana, do not have the respect for the people who have senior water rights. Okay. And you should be ashamed of yourself.
Okay, I'm going to have to let you go there because we have to get some more calls in. Thank you for your comment. Catherine, Ellie,
I did want to just comment. I appreciated that she noted that, again, the bill was carried by a very conservative Republican and had the full support of our Attorney General, Republican Attorney General Tim Fox, because it was a bill crafted 15 years in the making. And I think that, Susan, with all due respect, I really do appreciate your call. I do have appreciation for senior rider rights, which is the exact reason that I know that the Native Americans have their senior water rights based on the treaty. That's the bottom line. Okay, let's get Catherine on. Catherine, you're on. We have like 4 minutes. Go.
Okay, back to the Medicaid welfare systems discussion. Federal dollars will increase over a certain period of time. Isn't that correct?
They'll decrease.
Yeah, they will decrease the federal. In other words, and this is a common tactic, and I've seen it over and over because I used to work for the state government at one point in my little career. So the taxpayers of Montana then are on the hook for the program and the program costs after a certain period of years because the federal money dries up, and so then the strings that are attached by the feds will continue on. And this is a common tactic over all sectors. And what it does is it just increases the number of programs, but puts a squeeze on the taxpayers to pay for them.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there because I want to get comments from both individuals. So, Brad, you first. Did you agree or disagree? What do you think about it?
I think that's the tactic that the feds use. And we don't know what the federal government is going to do after they roll back the payments to 90-10, where the state picks up 10% of the cost. You know, the feds have come in and implemented programs and have backed away fully. So I agree. I think that there are significant liabilities that the state could be taken on. Okay. And
Ellie?
Well, I can't say enough that the Montana Chamber of Commerce, for example, supported the Medicaid expansion bill that was brought by Republican Ed Buttrey. And they did so because they disagree with your assessment that in the long run that this is going to be bad for Montana. The amount of uncompensated care, folks that can't pay their medical bills that were going to our hospitals, particularly our rural hospitals, was frankly bankrupting them. We've seen now where Medicaid expansion has passed in other states and the folks' insurance rates have gone down. When we work together to make sure people are insured, it's good for everyone. It's good for the doles of taxpayers who need to go back to work and often can't do so because they don't have appropriate medical coverage. So
let's try to get one more call in. I'm sorry. Marilyn, we have a minute and a half. Go ahead, quickly.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Brad for being my representative. I was able to attend a couple of the hearings personally and watch many on TV and the committee hearings. And thank you, Brad, for your thoughtful questions and your minority votes. I was very disheartened when I would see that the chart light up and, the rhinos going with the Democrats. And you were in the minority a lot, and I appreciate you for that and all your hard work over there, all that paperwork.
Redeeming the time. Real quick, do you have a question?
No, but I think the Democrats should call themselves Americans for Poverty because they're going to put us all in the poorhouse for all these taxes.
Thanks, Marilyn. I appreciate your call. So
I have a shameless question for both of you. Peter and I would like you to carry a bill for us next session, if you're still around. We think that elections for county attorney and for sheriffs across the state of Montana should be nonpartisan elections. Would you consider backing a bill like that?
100%. I think that it makes sense because we've already seen the upshoot of what happens when you have partisan elections for those positions, and I think it makes sense to make them a nonpartisan.
I just can't tell you. I fundamentally disagree. I have sat on House Judiciary for 3 sessions now, and many of the stances that both the county attorneys and the sheriffs take tend to be extremely partisan positions. They have opposed. The majority of our county sheriffs are actually Republicans, but they always oppose those bills to put guns in schools and banks and bars and a lot of the other sort of anti-government bills. There's always sort of the traditional bill we heard again this session to make the sheriff the supreme law of the land, like the feds can't come into your county without checking with your sheriff first. We see a lot of those type of bills, and I just think I understand what you're saying about how it is the scales of justice should be blind, like the picture of the woman with the scales and the blindfold. But I think that folks in Montana still want to know whether their county sheriff believes in
And I hate to do this to you. Yeah. We are completely out of time. Thank you. Okay.
That's a no vote from Ellie. So tomorrow we'll have the Political Science Department of UM here.
Have a great day, everybody.